Hey guys, Stealth here. Let's talk some more armor. After the armored gameplay that I put up today, I'm also putting up another armored deck review. This one was sent in by Saints, and Saints was using this one in the video that I named Sir Spams a lot, where he was using this on Asgard and destroying wave after wave after wave of enemy tanks, vehicles and helicopters. So let's see what he has in here. He uses this deck for big open maps like Asgard, for the flanks, and mostly for 10v10 maps. He says, I start with an armored push with escorts of Mistrals, Rolands and Gepards. Also, I find the Panzer Grenadiers an excellent companion to the tanks, and I really agree with that. He wrote, I tried to use it on smaller maps like 3v3 or 4v4, but haven't had the same success with it, unlike the bigger maps. He wants to know if I can have some improvements for this deck. I don't think so. It's usually a pretty solid setup that you can get for this deck. It's not. It doesn't really give you a lot of options, I suppose you could say, because there's a few units that are almost mandatory in a Eurocorp Armored deck. Some units that you really like to have in there, and I don't think that there's that much variation, but let's have a look. Okay, for starters, logistics, it's all the usual suspects again. A FOB, an Iltis KDOW command vehicle, Menkadi 6x6 logistics truck, nice unit by the way, very fast off-roading, you can use that in a map like Asgard. And then some logistics choppers. I would go with these ones as well. The reason for that is that they carry 1,000 units of supplies, they are pretty fast, 260. You get 8 of them, so you can resupply several points at once, instead of having only, for example, 3 of these helicopters, and really having to pick your location of where you want to resupply. The only thing that you could possibly change here is not go for an Iltis, but a command tank. Because usually on those flanks you don't have to capture that many positions, but if you can get a command tank in there, that would help. Because, for example, on Asgard on the flanks, if you can capture or neutralize an enemy command zone by putting command tank in there, it's going to be really difficult for the enemy to destroy this thing. Or at least a lot harder than one-shotting this 110 point CV. The options that we have are the Leopard 2 command tank, Leopard 1, which you can see has almost half the armor, and then there's the AMX 30 BC and E, but I would not use those because they have even less armor than the Leopard 1. So, just as an experiment really, I'm going to use the Leopard 2 command tank here. I will be using this deck later on, seeing if I can get a good result with it. I have had some success with armored decks, although I don't feel it's really my strength. Possibly because I was using them on the wrong maps. So let's see if this works. He has quite a bit of infantry here. Mistrals, as mentioned, nice AA units. Transported by the AMX-13 VTT, very cheap transports. If you want something which has an autocannon, go for the AMX-10P. Armor-wise, they have a bit more. They have 2 frontal armor and 2 side versus 1 front and 1 side. And with that, it's a nice unit to have. Especially if you're dealing with a bit of infantry or vehicles, because they can engage both with that autocannon. So in this situation, I will go for the 10P and get 6 of those. I don't think we'll be using HEGM Milan F3s at all in this game, considering that I'm going to mainly review this thing as it is a 10v10 deck. I don't think that on those open flanks, those large fields, you will be using a lot of HEGM infantry. So I'm going to throw those out and possibly spend those points on, for example, another command unit, but let's see about that later. Panzer Grenadiers in the Marder 1A3. I'm surprised that he's not using the Marder 1, the Marder 2, with its brilliant autocannon and very heavy armor. I would definitely want to have that in here. He has 2 cards of Panzer Grenadiers 90. I'm going to keep 1 in, the Marder 1. I don't really need the HGM, the Milan F2 on this Marder 1A3. So I'm going to keep these in as relatively cheap infantry for, okay, it is 40 points with the vehicle. And then we're going to get some Marder 2s in here. I'm going to go with 8 because these things will usually upvet themselves. You can see that they have 10 frontal armor, which is more than some tanks in this game. And, oh, he has actually a second card of Mistral Infantry. That might be a bit much. let's see. Unfortunately, support's already filled out. I was thinking about getting another one, or deleting one of these and putting that 3 points in support, but I don't think that's going to work out too well. Let's see, we don't exactly get access to any of the commandos here, unfortunately. No Commando Marines and no Fallschirmjägers in this deck. So really the only options that you have are Panzer Grenadiers, Line Infantry, Fire Support Squads, although I would not use these in a 10v10. ATGM Line F3s, yeah, as mentioned, I would not be using these in a battle like this. So, having 2 cards of Mistrals, I think this is not that bad of a choice. Let's go with this. Supports, I don't think he has enough AA. The AA that he has is upfetted to the max, it's all hardened. You don't really need that veterancy. I mean, it's going to help with accuracy a little bit, but otherwise I think that having them at base accuracy is well enough. So I'm definitely going to downvet the Gepard A2 back to 4 units, and considering doing the same for the Gepard A1. Alternatively, do we get the VLR Mistral? No, I don't get access to that. I was looking for the VLR, I think the VLRS Mistral truck, but unfortunately we don't get access to that in an armored deck. So we're going to have to figure out something else. I'm also going to downvet these guys, get them back to 6, and with this we have 10 AA guns. And then he has 10 AA platforms for anti-airplanes. These are not anti-airplanes, by the way, these are anti-helicopters as well. But I think that we have enough Gepards to do that. I'm going to delete those. FRP Roland 3s are going to be our main anti-airplane defense with their 3.5 kilometer AA range. He has 4 of these, which should be enough. I'm hoping to get an ally to support me on this position. So what I could do is go for some sniper artillery or some HE artillery. And I think that these would be an interesting asset in this deck. Reason for this is that you can suppress infantry, you can wound, panic, or at least force units to go into the shaken morale stance, where they're going to be less effective. So for now, and because I rarely use these things, let's go with 2 of these MLRS systems. And then of course he has a couple of, what do they call again, mortars in here. Almost mandatory if you have an armored deck, because armored, while it does have the capacity to cross fields pretty quickly, will sometimes need a smokescreen, and that's what you get these guys for. Now moving on to the tanks, a lot of German tanks here as expected really. Leopard 2A5, mandatory tank in an armored deck. You want to have these in. They are almost your main weapon system. If the Leopard 2A4 wasn't that good of a tank. If you compare these, you're going to see that the Leopard 2A5 has a better gun. It has more accuracy, more armor penetration, the same rate of fire, a little bit more frontal armor by 3, same speed, same autonomy. So it's definitely an upgrade over the 2A4, but the 2A4 is very, very capable of fending for itself. So 1 card of Leopard 2A5s as it is a prototype, 2 cards of Leopard 2A4 at Elite, which means that we don't get that many of them. You only get 6, and that means keep them alive. If you keep them alive, they will keep the rest of your tanks alive. A couple of Leopard 2A1s. I want to throw in some variety here as well. Leopard 2A1s are great tanks, but I feel that we're going to be mostly using 2A5s, 2A4s and Leclercs. So what I want to get in is the Kyler, and I know I have 1 point to do that, but I want to spend 3 of those on logistics. So I'm going to sacrifice 1 2A1 to get, let's make it 8 Kylers in, because with these autocannons and the close proximity to forests, you want to have a couple of these guys ready with their autocannons to suppress or destroy enemy infantry. The Leclerc is the French main battle tank. This is easily one of my favorite tanks in the game. Mostly because it can do everything well. It has a nice mix of armor penetration, accuracy. Keep in mind this is exactly the same. Stabilizer, and main accuracy, so sitting still, are exactly the same. It's not something you see very often. Armor penetration of 21 means that it will struggle with some tanks, but that's what we got the 2A5 for. It has medium optics. It is a big tank, unfortunately. It would be nice if this was a small tank, or a medium tank, but okay. 20 frontal armor means that some of the high-end tanks will go through this unit, but most of them will still struggle with doing so. And then some AMX 40s. These are the only, or one of the few French tanks that actually have a stabilizer. Although the stabilizer that they do have is not that good. I'm not sure the AMX 40 is the best tank. The reason I'm saying that is that it is pretty much depending on ambushes, because the stabilizer is not that good. Frontal armor is not that good, but the armor penetration is high, and it does carry an autocannon. But I found that it doesn't really use this that often. Only really when the main gun is disabled, so when you actually turn this off, it'll turn itself into an autocannon platform. So with that unit logic a little bit being out the window, I'm not going to take the AMX 40 for this deck. Instead I'm considering the AMX 30B2 Brennus, because it's a bit cheaper, 65 points, and you still get a decent amount of accuracy and armor penetration on it. Let's see, the Leopard 1A5, I'm always comparing these because I never remember which one is better. Leopard 1A5 does have a stabilizer, does have accuracy, does have armor penetration. It has almost the same armor profile, 10 front versus 11, 3 side versus 5, and otherwise it's the same thing. Optics, poor versus medium. So I feel that since the Brennus doesn't really use that autocannon that often, the Leopard 1A5 would be a better fit for this deck. So I can spend another point here. Let's see, if I can delete this, I'm going to go with 2 more cards of Leopard 1A5s and put them all at elite. Gives me 41 tanks, not the highest amount for an armored deck, but if we manage these things correctly, it should be enough. Reconnaissance is very, very important in a deck like this, and I think that the setup that he has here is not the best. You don't have enough spotting vehicles. Unfortunately, you don't get a lot of spawning vehicles. You're mostly going to rely on your AMX 1390s, which only have good optics. You're going to be relying on your Eloit 3 with very good optics, and I would take the Leopard reconnaissance tank, because these with some armor, 5 frontal armor versus 2 frontal armor, are a little bit more likely to survive. And then he has a lot of infantry. You can unfortunately only get the Commando's Para and the Pirate in this situation, which is a bit unusual. Normally you can also get them in the standard Puma. He has a second one in the VLRA. Unfortunately we don't get any of the spotter infantry of the Fernspayers either, so that is unfortunate, because you would want to have very good optics with an exceptional stealth profile, but we don't get that. I think that having 12 of these is too many, especially since they die very easily. So I'm going to throw out that one and instead get the Leopard command tank and take 8 of those. With that we should have a decent amount of reconnaissance units, 32. I am consciously taking 12 of these 1390s over 8, and the reason for that is that I don't expect them to have a very high life expectancy. I expect these things to get killed all the time. So that's why I'm going to go with a higher availability, so that I can replace them quickly. And they are very cheap, they're only 20 points. Vehicle wise, we got a Martyr VTS-1. Very nice fire support unit, and pretty much when I'm using Eurocorp I always try to have one of these. And he has Weasel 1 Tow 2s. These guys are not going to be in my selection. The reason for that is that they have terrible autonomy. And the last thing you want to do when you're managing your tanks, and you will be micromanaging the Leopard 2A5, the Leclercs, Leopard 2A4s, is having to spend your time refueling a Weasel 1 Tow 2. You just don't have the attention for it. So that's why I'm not going to be using this one. That frees up another 2 points, so let's see if I can spend those somewhere else. Helicopter wise, he has the Cassiope. An interesting helicopter, and I'm interested to see how effective it's going to be. Reason I'm saying that is because while they do have a great autocannon, the G at 30, high accuracy, high stabilizer, decent armor penetration and a good rate of fire, you're usually going to take a lot of fire from AA if you're in a match like this. So we're going to see how well these things perform as I'm doing a replay on it. Then he has the Gazelle Hot 2. The Gazelle Hot 2 and the BO-105P are pretty much the same helicopter spec-wise, or at least loadout-wise. Let's start with the loadout. The Hot 2 has 2 missiles less, but is a lot faster, 310 versus 240. Autonomy is way higher, and this means that the Gazelle can sweep in, fire off a couple of those Hots, kill off a high-end tank, and get the hell out of there, and that's what I want them to do. So I'm going to definitely stick with the Gazelles, and he has 6 of these at hardened. Should be enough for us. Airplane wise, he does not have an air superiority fighter. Interesting. You don't always need them, and especially if you're focusing this deck specifically on a situation like Asgard, you might not even need an air superiority fighter. What you will need is an ECR, so a seaplane, and he has one of those. He has 1 card of Tornado IDS bombers. Definitely the good choice here. And then some Mirage 111Cs, which are the napalm planes, and I'm not sure if these are the things that I would be using. I would much rather use something that has a cluster bomb in case I'm dealing with bigger groups of vehicles, or get a tank sniper in. This might be better. Let's see, anything that has cluster bombs in here? I'm not sure. Yeah, the Beluga. Okay, we're going to go with the Beluga instead. Reason for this is that it's still going to do quite a bit of damage against super heavies. It is still going to do quite a bit of destruction versus vehicles. And that will make the infantry a lot easier to pick off for my tanks, especially the Kyler, for example, which I have in the tank section. And the vehicles like the Marder VTS. With that, I think that we can spend some more points in logistics. And unfortunately, I only get 1 of these command tanks. But I'm also going to bring in another command. Let's see, we cannot get command infantry, unfortunately. So let's compare the Leopard 1 versus the MX-30B. Leopard 1 is less mobile, but has more armor. This one is cheaper by 15 points. So for this situation, I will be going with the AMX-30B. Reason for that is that this is going to be my main, or actually that might not be the best option. Let's go with this APC. I still think it looks a bit like a refrigerator on tracks. There's nothing wrong with that, but it's probably due to the big air conditioning unit on the front of the vehicle. We're going to be using this one as our main CV, which is operating behind the safety of our lines, and the Leopard 2 command tank is going to be the main command unit for frontal operations. I'm not saying I'm going to use this unit to destroy enemy tanks. That is not what this is designed to do. But if you're pushing into an area heavily and you can bring or smuggle a Leopard 2 command tank in, you're suddenly going to have to, or the enemy's suddenly going to have to either find it and destroy it, or bring in its resupplies or additional units from another area, which is not always easy to do. It gives me 2 more points. I can spend those on vehicles, helicopters, or on 1 more tank. Let's see about the vehicles. We can get some HOTs in here, AMX HOT, which are HGM carriers, but again, I don't really want to micromanage these. There's the Kanonenjagdpanzer, but I don't like it because it has bad accuracy, some armor penetration, autonomy is not that good. Let's see the Jaguars. I'm not a really big fan of HGM vehicles if you have a deck that is this heavy geared towards anti-tank warfare with all of its tanks. Helicopters, pretty much the same deal. I don't feel it's that useful to have another card of AMX or a Gazelle Hot 2s. It could work. You could make these things work for you. Reconnaissance wise is unfortunately too expensive. And I don't think we can free up another card for tanks to get another recon unit in. So in that case I'm going to go with 1 more tank. Let's see if there's any favorites of mine that I haven't added yet. We could go with another card of Leopard 2A1s anyway. Yeah, let's go with that. 2 more Elite Leopard 2A1s. And that gives me 43 tanks, which should be enough. So a few adjustments here to the deck that Saints sent in. I'm eager to try this thing out on Asgard. I hope to have another replay for you of this deck up today. I'm not sure it's going to work because I don't want to show you a crappy game unless you can learn how I messed it up and how you can prevent that in the future. But let's see. I hope it will work, and if I have something great to show you, I'll put it up on the channel. Now with that, if you have a deck that you would like me to have a look at, please send it in through the link in the description. I have my own website where you can send them in. I get quite a few per day, so keep that in mind. Your deck will not be featured tomorrow right away, unless it's something that really draws my eye. But mostly I have a large mailbox with a lot of these decks sitting ready to go. And since I do one deck review every day, there's a good chance that your deck will be featured. So just be patient and your deck will appear. Anyway, with that, it's the end of the video. Hope you liked it. If you did, please hit the like button below. If you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to do so. And if you want to use the deck link is in the description below as well. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.